Hello, and welcome to our new podcast, The Fifth Race, a Stargate podcast. My name's Justin Nolan.
And my name is Tim Phillips. I have never seen Stargate SG-1. I saw the movie in 1994 when it came out, and I've now seen the pilot. I am the inexperienced first-time viewer.
We probably should have said, how about for a little history lesson on ourselves? But that's okay. I'm an avid Stargate fan. I've seen probably every episode of SG-1, every episode of Atlantis, and the movie. And my idea for this podcast was we'd get a Stargate junkie together with someone that likes science fiction but has never seen Stargate, and we'll just talk about each of the episodes, starting from episode 1. And that's pretty much the idea.
So, this is the start to the Stargate SG-1 podcast, The Fifth Race. Hopefully, it'll be pretty good, and we can go through all 10 seasons.
And then on to Atlantis. And the movie, and the hopefully a lot of direct-to-DVD movies.
Or made-for-TV.
Or
Did they do
TV? No, they didn't do any made-for-TV.
Oh, okay.
And then, possibly the third series.
If the third series does get made.
Right. Which is currently going under the name Stargate Universe. Can't wait.
Right.
So, this is our podcast about Stargate Episode 1, Children of God. Or the Children of the Gods. So,
yeah, you should probably check episode names before we start recording.
Possibly, but that would be way too professional.
I'm the one taking notes, and I didn't write down the name of the episode, so I'll remember to do that next time.
All right. So you want me to give a summary real quick about the episode?
Yeah, sure. Start out with the summary.
All right. Basically, Children of the Gods takes place 1 year after the original movie.
Got that.
Right. We open up with the Stargate, deep underground, and a bunch of officers playing cards. Some people come through the gate, take one of the ladies,
The newbie.
and kills
the newbie, who's weirded out by the gate, and yet also an idiot. I mean, she walks up to the thing as soon as anything comes out.
I'm sure that has something to do with plot, had to say that, so, I guess. So they go and basically get Colonel O'Neill, and are like, yeah, you need to come and Stargate program's going to be reactivated or whatever, because aliens have come through the gate, and they're like, well, Ra's dead, but...
They don't believe Ra's dead, they're trying to decide, and they find out O'Neill had been lying and had claimed that they destroyed the gate, all that.
Correct.
Crap.
So then, they decide they're going to... Well, first they send a box of tissue paper to Abydos to see if... Because Daniel was supposed to bury the gate.
And Daniel supposedly has allergies in a desert. The amount of pollen in the air from those things.
What if he's allergic to dust?
On a foreign planet.
He could be allergic to dust.
It was one of my issues with the movie. I'm like, okay, you travel to new places, you experience different pollens, fine. You go to a desert, there are very few things to be allergic to in the desert.
Sand?
Sand isn't an allergen, classically. Sand can get in your nose and cause an irritant.
Maybe there's some pollen that grows in a submicroscopic
on a foreign planet.
It could happen. Maybe it doesn't grow here, it grows there.
But it's one of the plot devices that I was not a fan of in the movie, and if they drop his allergies during the course of the series, I will not be disappointed.
Okay, I'll give you a little hint. They don't. So, they introduce a new character, Captain Samantha Carter, who's an expert on Stargate travel, and she returns with O'Neill to find Daniel on the planet after they send the box of tissue paper.
I will comment that the bantering between Samantha Carter and O'Neill, somewhat silly, like at the beginning. I think it looked like it might improve as the series goes, but in the beginning, I could have lived maybe without that.
I thought it was funny. I liked it. Alright, so they go to Abydos, And when they get there, they talk with Daniel, and they're like, Ra's alive. Or, well, they don't say it like that, but aliens came through that look like Ra. They're like, well, they didn't come here because we've been guarding the gate for 36 hours.
A day, because it's 36-hour days.
36-hour days, right. And Jackson's like, well, I think I know what's going on. And Jackson takes them to a map room.
A coordinate room. A series of coordinates to all the possible places you can go. And
I'm going to interject a question here.
Yeah.
Why do you think this map room is on Abydos?
Now, I'm... pure speculation... since Ra was using it kind of as his base of operations, I'm guessing Ra might have created the map room, and or Abydos could be the original home planet of the aliens that are inhabiting people, because that's where the mineral the stargates are made from. So that would be the planet of the origin of all the stargates. Unless this mineral is found on other planets as well, but because we know the mineral is being mined on Abydos, we can assume Abydos is somehow connected to the origins of the stargates initially.
The mineral that's used to that makes the stargates also in all the Gould weapons. So, I mean, it plays an more important role than that. I don't think that's what it is, and I'm not exactly sure why the map room is on Stargate or on Abydos, and I don't think Ra was really using Abydos as his base of operations. I think that was like a labor camp of his, and that was it.
Okay, well, I'll accept that, but is it ever discovered the minerals being mined on other planets?
Yes.
Okay. Now, that was the one thing. Like, if the minerals really only found on Abydos, we could assume that Abydos was planet of origin in some sense.
The other flip side of this is...
I mean, it's a pretty lousy planet from what we see of it, so if it's entirely desert, I can see why they left it, but...
we don't really know that... I mean, the planet could be really... I mean, the planet could be big. I mean, Daniel didn't have time to travel all the way around the planet. There could be more there.
I know. But if Star Wars has taught me anything, it's all planets besides Earth have only one microcosm.
Well...
They're entirely ice, entirely sand, entirely jungle, even though that was a large moon.
Right.
Here I've inserted a spoiler noise. Go 10 seconds into the future, and you'll miss that. It's a minor spoiler.
One other thing to keep in mind, the Gould didn't build the Stargates.
Oh. Okay, now you see, I would not have known that.
Okay. Should I give spoilers like that, or is that bad?
I don't know. Are we expecting any of our listeners to be annoyed with those spoilers? Because I can deal with those spoilers. But it's probably a bad idea, because I won't be nearly as surprised later. So... Maybe
the viewers should email us and tell us whether you like the spoilers, because, I know it all, so, I can interject more. I don't know it all, I guess, but I know everything that's happened for the most part that I remember anyway. But, because I know a lot more that I want to say that I'm not going to say. But listeners, you should feel free to email us at, I'll get right on that and let you know what the email address is.
We'll give the email at the end of the podcast.
So, alright, so they find the map room and realize, they figure out, well, one of the weird things is it's funny how our gate doesn't work because of the stellar drift that they establish, because planets drift apart. Well, here's the question. Why is it that all the other devices do work?
Well, the others can just be compensating for the stellar drift. I mean, they explained that.
Well, it made it sound like Jackson said that he'd tried hundreds of combinations from Abydos, and they didn't work.
Well, that's because he wasn't compensating for stellar drift either.
Right, but none of the other planets with the dial or the DHD or those things that sit in front of the things are called they eventually name them dial home devices, or DHD for short.
Right.
Well, as the series goes on, I mean, they just hit the buttons and they just work.
Well, that's because they've been compensating for stellar drift.
Then why didn't the Abydos one do it? if it has the same DHD as all the other ones.
No, the DHD isn't compensating. The people, like, they've got their computer that's spitting out the combinations.
Right.
That's doing it.
That's why ours doesn't work, because we don't have a DHD. But my point is...
No. Ours would, like, you have to put in the revised coordinates into the DHD. And we've got the computer spitting out things, so we know the revised coordinates. And the people at the other places have been using the gates for however long, and so they know the stellar drift, and so they're using revised coordinates. And so they would work from Abydos as well. If Daniel had known to make revised coordinates and known how to make revised coordinates.
I disagree with you on that, because I don't think that... because nobody... I mean, unless they just do that behind the scenes and they don't show it. My idea behind it was... We have to
I
compensate
figure they're
for the
doing.
stellar drift.
I think they're doing
that.
I mean, we can assume that the gold. Yeah, can't say. Gold. How is it pronounced? Gould. Okay, the Gould are compensating. We can assume that they're compensating. They've been using them. They've adjusted for stellar drift, and that they're putting in the coordinates, and that Daniel is however it is, figuring out the revised coordinates when he gets back. We assume, but
all right, we'll leave this discussion for later. But I'm not sure about that. So basically, while they're in the map room, Apophis comes and steals Skara and Sharai.
Yeah.
And takes them to,
attacks, the group, and they take them off to, whatever the other planet is.
Or become hosts.
Well, to become part of the group that may become hosts.
Right. So then they go back to Earth with Daniel. Before Daniel leaves, he tells them to bury the Stargate for a year. And 1 year from this day, unbury the gate, and if Daniel doesn't come through, then bury it again forever.
And hopefully Daniel knows how to compensate for whatever the length of their years are. Assuming they're using their year, not a human year. Because they have 36-hour days, and so the 365-day year may or may not be the case.
Correct. Good point. So they get back, and Daniel's like, my wife got kidnapped, I want to be on this team, we need to go and...
You skipped over the touching moment between Daniel and O'Neill at their place, in which Daniel claimed the beer was going to his head before he took a drink.
I still say that if you notice, there was a beer bottle on the fireplace next to where Daniel was standing that hopefully was empty. Though, I think it's established later that Daniel's a very light alcoholic, so...
Well, yeah. I was kind of guessing that. Even though he taught the people on the Abydos how to make moonshine.
He might not have taught him. They might have just done it or figured it out themselves.
They might have been doing it for years.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's kind of a constant.
Okay. It seemed implied that Daniel had been teaching them.
Because, think about it. Didn't we discover, like, moonshine in ancient Egypt, too? Or homebrewed alcohol?
People have been brewing various forms of alcohol.
That's my whole point.
I mean,
so if the people are from ancient Egypt, then it stands to reason.
Most of the time, they weren't making what would be moonshine, which would be a very high proof hard liquor. Most of the time, they were making something more akin to beer or wine. Wine is the most common in many ways. You can make it from things other than grapes.
Okay, good. So, continuing on. Jackson, Carter, and O'Neill with Kowalski basically go to this new planet called Chulak, which they find these...
are we skipping over all of the host issue?
I was gonna talk about the planet and then say about the host.
Okay, well, because the scenes actually showing the host happen before they actually arrive on the planet.
Okay, good point.
And so if we're going chronologically, this is why I have notes.
All right, my notes are bad. Your notes are better.
That's because I took my notes while watching the episode. How did you get your notes?
Don't ask. I did them from memory. So, basically, they take the Air Force captain that was kidnapped at the very beginning of the episode, and Apoptosis Queen rejects her, so they kill her,
Right.
and then shortly